Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. So Eddie Hearn, if you guys aren't aware, he and Jake Paul going back and forth. Eddie Hearn's a little bit sour. I personally think he's overreacting. No one takes Jake Paul serious. Doesn't matter what you think about Eddie Hearn. I think we definitely take him more serious than Jake Paul. But anyway, Eddie Hearn, he said, "Hey man, I'm not effing around." And he launched a lawsuit against Jake Paul for defamation, man, because Jake Paul is saying that Eddie Hearn is over there rigging fights to make sure his fighters win. Now, my thing is this: Jake Paul is going to learn real quick. Don't put yourself in a Deontay Wilder type situation where you're spewing stuff out there, and although it may seem like there's some smoke, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's definitely may be a gray area, but if you can't prove it, shut up, okay? There are people who lose respect for you. There's going to be some people who say, "Nah, we believe there's something going on," but at the end of the day, if you can't prove it, just shut up. And Jake Paul is, I'm not saying the Deontay Wilder situation is the same, but Jake Paul and Deontay Wilder, the situations are independent of each other. But it's kind of the same thing, as far as saying something and not being able to prove it and wanting to prove it. But Jake Paul's just a clown who has been getting away with doing a lot of real unprofessional stuff. That's the world he comes from. A lot of antics, a lot of buffoonery. He's bringing that into boxing. And Eddie Hearn, I think, can tolerate it for a little while, but then he's getting tired of it. In addition to that, Eddie Hearn is under a lot of pressure. Okay, so what exactly did Jake Paul say? Well, let's just get into this whole thing, man. Eddie Hearn feels that what Jake Paul's saying is not even something that he can just brush off, right? He's saying that the claims are outrageous and he's tired because Paul's claiming that Eddie Hearn paid off a judge in two recent fights per the lawsuit that Eddie Hearn filed. Now, the thing with Paul, man, Paul said in an interview with IFL TV that Hearn's Matchroom Boxing paid off the judge in an August fight between Usyk and Anthony Joshua and did so again in an April bout between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Both fights ended in split decisions with Usyk, and that's the thing about this guy, man, with Usyk beating Joshua and then Katie Taylor beating Amanda Serrano. Now, I don't care what happened in those fights. I think Serrano did enough to win, but it was close. Katie Taylor winning wasn't a robbery, but the damn fights were close. Usyk and AJ, the right person won, okay? So it is what it is. As far as the scorecards, hey, I don't know, but the right person won. But anyway, man, Paul goes on to say he still thinks Serrano won the fight. Then you see how this judge, he keeps talking about this guy, his name is Glenn Feldman, had the biggest gap between Serrano and Katie Taylor. He said everyone else pretty much had a draw that Amanda won, but there's this judge, Glenn Feldman, who scored such a big gap for Taylor, gave rounds that Amanda clearly won to Taylor. Then he says Glenn Feldman is the same referee, right, that Jake Paul has an issue with. He shows up to Saudi and scores Anthony Joshua to win the fight when everyone watched the fight said it was not a split decision. Now, Jake Paul, he's correct in his observation. Anthony Joshua didn't win that fight in Saudi. But I'll tell you this, right? I've sat here at home, and I'm no damn judge, and I've scored fights when I'm watching boxing. Man, and sometimes the way I'm scoring it is nowhere near the way the unofficial boxing judges, the unofficial scorecards have it, and the actual official scorecards have it. And it just depends on what you're looking at, But then again, I'm not saying Jake Paul is totally off beam with saying there's something funny about this guy's scorecards. What I'm saying is, man, he's stupid because now he can't prove it. So anyway, man, Jake Paul feels that it's repeated crimes that are happening when it comes to Glenn Feldman and it comes to Matchroom fighters. And he said he's going to go ahead and call it out because he thinks it's BS. Clearly the guy's getting paid by Matchroom. And that's what Eddie Hearn didn't like. Now, there are some people who can look at this at Jake Paul and say, well, He's like going against the grain. No one's going to like what he has to say, but he's here to clean up boxing. Maybe it's good to have someone who's going to come in, unbiased party, and call themselves launching an investigation into the corruption of boxing. And maybe Jake Paul's the guy to do it, right? Maybe he's the guy to do it. But Jake Paul, someone need to get a hold of this fool real quick. Because I think that lawsuit is for $20 million. There was some mention about just, $75,000, but my understanding is like $20 million. And all Eddie Hearn wants is for this clown to just apologize, retract his statements. But Jake Paul's young and stubborn, and he doesn't want to do that. He's got the wrong people around him advising him. I guess Jake Paul feels not much will come out of it. I guess he feels he has the money. He'll just deal with it. Now, it's a lose-lose situation for Jake Paul. And I respect Eddie Hearn for holding his ground. And, hey, he believes in his position, and he's suing him. Now, and his business means the world to him. His dad started it. He's not going to let a guy like Jake Paul come out here and try to tear it down with BS statements, because that's not fair, man, and it can't be substantiated. But the other thing with Eddie Hearn, pay attention, people. I've been saying this for a while. Eddie Hearn's under pressure. He's depressed. Eddie Hearn's depressed. He's angry. He's stressed. Part of me feels bad for Eddie Hearn. A lot of people don't like him. Everyone takes digs at him. A lot of these guys don't want to work with him. Eddie Hearn is good at what he does. I like Eddie Hearn, man. And if you look at what he's doing, he's out here, got shit going on in Australia. I mean, he's got stuff going on all over. The one thing I say about Eddie Hearn that I may take a little poke at him about, right, is that the zone money, that I think he just didn't play that right. And a lot of people hold on to that when it comes to him. But I'm telling you right now, I've been saying this, if Eddie Hearn, I've been saying this, I think Eddie Hearn is put the zone in the red by blowing that $1 billion and not getting a return on investment. I've been saying he's got to put together fights that are home runs. Everything has to be a grand slam he puts together. So when a guy like Jake Paul makes this kind of statement, right, about he's paying off judges, his fights are fixed, Eddie Hearn's the kind of guy who would normally laugh it off or say something witty back to him to get us all to kind of laugh at Jake Paul, like, who is he? Like, I can see Eddie Hearn doing that. He's not doing that. He's suing now because he's frustrated, and that's not the opportunity. And this is just me on the outside looking in to try to get money. And Jake Paul's basically just sitting, basically just giving it to him because he's making these stupid statements. So it's an opportunity for Eddie Hearn to, one, take out his frustration on Jake Paul, and two, recoup a little bit of money. Because with Jake Paul saying that, it's not just Eddie Hearn. The zone's involved. Other entities are involved. So with a broad brush statement like what Jake Paul made about these judges and stuff like that, that's problematic for a lot of people, and it can hurt a lot of people's business. I don't think it will, because no one takes Jake Paul serious. But just statements like that, Jake Paul will have to learn to think twice before he opens his mouth. Now, for those of you saying, Eddie Hearn's not having any money troubles, I'm telling you, man, they're in the red. You look at what happened here with Canelo, okay? Canelo and Triple G. They didn't hit the mark where they wanted to. Eddie Hearn's saying one thing, other people are saying other things. But in that close community, there's a lot of particulars, a lot of facts about each other's business that they're going to be privy to. Okay, so when Leonard Ellaby and Showtime and those guys get information about Eddie Hearn's, and I'm going to call it a failed event because it didn't hit the financial projections and pay-per-view sale projections that they wanted, I'll call that a failed event. Doesn't mean that it failed overall, but if they didn't hit their mark, you'll consider that a failure. So when that happens, that puts more stress on Eddie Hearn. He's got AJ out here who lost to Usyk twice. That puts stress on Eddie Hearn. He's got in a situation where there's a carrot being dangled in front of him for Anthony Joshua to fight Tyson Fury. But he doesn't want to do that because, if AJ takes another loss, that's a huge blow to AJ and to Matchroom. Because I already said, I think AJ and his performances and his events make up 50% of the revenue for Matchroom. So when you look at all of those things that Eddie Hearn is dealing with, when Jake Paul comes out and makes a statement like this, Eddie Hearn's already on the edge, okay? He's already stressed, he's already at his wit's end, and he's ready to blow up on somebody. So Jake Paul's just going to get that in a form of a lawsuit. Now, I will tell you this, the fight to make is Eddie Hearn and Leonard Ellerbe. That's the fight to make. And I think Eddie Hearn would take that fight. Boy, that'll be like a $100 million fight, wouldn't it? It would make a load of money. But anyway, that's what I think is, that's why I think Eddie Hearn is really suing him. I think Eddie Hearn's just stressing. I think he's frustrated. And Jake Paul, once he knows that there's a scab there, oh, I injured you? That injury is starting to scab over now? And Jake Paul's going to pick at it and pick at it and pick at it and just annoy the hell out of you. But Eddie Hearn says it's outlandishly false, and he doesn't want to deal with that bull crap, and he wants an official apology from him. And if he doesn't, which Jake Paul chose not to, he's going to sue him, and now he sued him. So with numbers being out there like 75,000, I was saying 20 million. So who knows what direction this is going as it passes through the wickets of the legal, whatever the hell is going on. But it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating for Eddie Hearn. It's funny because he talks about I'm not having his name, talking about Matchroom, in the business defamed and the integrity of what they do be compromised. And I understand Eddie Hearn, man. I understand him, but I think when I hear a guy like any promoter using the word like integrity to describe themselves or their business, to me that's laughable. Doesn't matter if it's Leonard Ellerbe, Bob Arum. When it comes to these promoters, they will say and do anything. That's their job. It's all about exaggeration. It's all about sometimes making things up, keeping the public engaged with you, keeping them interested. But with this right here, Eddie Hearn's definitely not playing. He's frustrated, and it's just crazy. But we'll see what happens, man. Eddie Hearn sued him. He's already leaned forward and got it going. So if it turns into a $20 million, if it's really going to be a $20 million lawsuit, Jake Paul loses. He might not have to pay that much, but he loses if he can't prove anything, and that'll be good for him. Give him a damn lesson learned to just shut up sometime. Not everything has to be a circus. Just need to chill sometime. With that being said, y'all keep cool. I appreciate your support, and I'm in the breeze.